Is this video real or fake? What does the video actually show? Did Stratcom's space aggressors shoot down a UFO in this location? That's what someone claiming to be in the military is saying. Did Eisenhower actually make a deal with bad ETs? Or does the idea contradict everything we know about General Eisenhower and his personality? Are ETs hostile to humans, or is the military hostile to both humans and ETs? This and more, coming up next. Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. I was supposed to be interviewing Daniel Grothe. Daniel Grothe is the host of Was It Das German podcast, and he ran out of time, so I'm going to have to present this information on my own. We're going to be talking about the Mage Brazil UFO crashes again, and I'm going to talk about Richard Dolan's position on the matter, as well as the controversial video footage of the alleged actual UFO crash. We'll take a look at that again and on screen together, and I'll give you my thoughts on that. And we're also going to talk about some things that both Daniel Grothe and I agree on. I think we both agree that something happened in Mage Brazil, although we have a little bit of difference in opinions as far as our theories, and I'll talk about that a little bit as well as we move forward. And we're also going to get into this comment that somebody left on his website claiming to be a military personnel, and we're going to look at the alleged crash sites, the actual locations. I'm going to use Google Earth to show you guys, and we'll take a closer look at it together using Google Earth and stuff like that. For now, I'm doing things a little bit differently. For some reason, when I'm in studio, it's showing me out of focus. So because I was planning on doing the interview, I was gonna do it on camera. So I'm not going to be in the studio. I'm on this screen instead. Because it was showing me out of focus. I am going to get that corrected though, and that way that when I want to be on camera, I can be in the studio and stuff like that. So this is the wasitdaspodcast.idoknowbetter.com website, and this is what he put. He says that this person left a comment in one of his videos, and it was in Portuguese, and it's been translated into English, and this is what it says. It says, "I am a member of the armed forces. I will bring updated information so that the entire Brazilian population can learn about the inexplicable events that occurred in the region, and that all residents can have access to the truth of the facts that happened in the municipality of Mage in Rio de Janeiro. Initially, I will draw a timeline so that everyone can understand what was going on. On April 20th, 2020, military satellites in the United States detected a strong presence of unexplained aerial phenomenon activities in some states in Brazil. They are Parana, São Paulo, Minas Gerais, Amapá, and Rio de Janeiro. On April 21st, 2020, the United States Department of Defense, the Pentagon, following protocols, international standards determined by NATO, informed the Ministry of Defense of Brazil and the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the Armed Forces, EMCFA, that military air patrols in the Rio de Janeiro region would be intensified, since there would be an increase in activities of this phenomenon in the region. It was immediately determined by EMCFA that military air patrolling be intensified in Rio de Janeiro with the support of the FAB Air Base in Santa Cruz, Rio de Janeiro, and the Naval Air Base of São Pedro de Aldeia, Rio de Janeiro. On May 1st, 2020, the CINDACTA-1 radar detected strong activity from unknown aerial phenomena in Rio de Janeiro, in the cities of Araruma, Cachoeiras de Macuca, Sumiduro, and in the metropolitan region, so the military informed COMDABRA, COMDABRA. I'm going to explain what a lot of these abbreviations mean. We'll go over it after this. I've done an analysis of this entire comment. On May 12, 2020, the DTCEA PCO of Pico Ducato in Petropolis, Rio de Janeiro, detected the increase of inexplicable activities in a very intense way in the region. At about 8 p.m. on this day, the American military reported to Brasilia the fall of an object, a UFO, in a forest region in the municipality of Mage, Rio de Janeiro. The United States Department of Defense has ordered General John Raymond to deploy 20 Special Forces soldiers, 10 of whom are from the American Space Force and 10 from the Space Aggressor 26th Squadron, commanded by Captain Barnes. In the early hours of May 13, 2020, the American military disembarked at a military air base in the state of São Paulo and traveled in FAB planes to a military base in Rio de Janeiro. The operation was baptized with the code name Organ Range, Serra do Orgãos. It is important to note that the Brazilian military personnel provided only logistical support. The Americans informed that the visits of these objects to Earth have been more and more frequent in the world, and that when arriving at the place of the fall, it was verified that there were 3, quote, intruders, unquote, in the damaged ship. Then at around 7 p.m., the military, armed with advanced technological devices unknown to the Brazilian military, intercepted and slaughtered a humanoid character of approximately 2 meters in height in the region of Chacara dos Atrios in the municipality of Guapimirim, Rio de Janeiro, near the river suburb coordinates -22 degrees, 0.485839 and -43 degrees, 0.018396, and I'm going to go over those coordinates with you guys using Google Earth. We'll actually look at the location in a few minutes. The other 2 beings were captured alive and wounded in the Guapacu region in the municipality of Cachoeiras de Macuca, Rio de Janeiro, coordinates -22 degrees, 0.44037 and -42 degrees, 0.769413, and transported along with all the displacement material of the, quote, intruders, unquote, to the American military base. May 2020. All American military personnel have already left Brazil. Only military helicopters in the country patrol the region. After this incident, there were no new expressive reports of sighting of unexplained phenomena in the region. Strong arm, helping hand, serve and protect, and then the initials are EB. Okay, so this is the general area of southern Brazil right here. You can see it's in South America. I'll actually show you guys, you know, the big view. And supposedly there was the first crash that everybody was talking about was right here on this property. That's my understanding. And we'll look at the video one more time with the explosions on this property in a few minutes. But my understanding is, why does it look so, I mean, it almost looks like they blurred it out. Usually Google Earth doesn't look that bad, but it does look pretty bad. So my understanding is this is, you can see almost like a gate, and that's this. And then, I don't know where that, okay, yeah. And this is definitely the property, because they show this thing on the in the video. It's almost like a monument thing, or not quite a statue. I don't know what to call it, but some sort of a decorative thing, or like a sign or something. This is definitely the property though. And then it looked like all that smoke was coming from in here somewhere. So, and then of course this is an ordnance company. They make military ordnance. Ordnance is like heavy guns. For example, like a mounted 50 caliber is an example of ordnance. And you know, you don't, this doesn't look like it would be an area that they would be able to test ordnance, for example. So I think I can safely rule out that they were doing any type of test. And then I don't know if they actually make the ordnance here at this place, or if it's just the office headquarters. I'm not familiar with this company, this ordnance company. They may not even make it here. Even if they do make it here, it doesn't mean they test it here. In fact, I'm looking, and this looks like residential properties. So I think it's safe to say that they don't test the ordnance on this property, most likely. These buildings, I don't know what they are. They don't look like they're residences. But you just can't tell because it seems like it's blurred out a little bit. These do look like residences. And then, so I'll explain as we move forward why I think that the video that we saw, and we'll talk about that video, by the way, why I think it was from this location, because there is a hill here, and this could be categorized as a mountain. And certainly it's a very large hill. The entire area is mountainous. You can see, as I'll zoom out, this is all can be, especially over in this area, and we're going to talk about this area as well, because that's where the second crash location was. Not even that far away, supposedly. But so this would be just a lower hill, not as high, or a lower mountain. I don't see why you can't call that a mountain. So it would be consistent with the reports of the residents. And then I'll explain to you guys, we're going to look at that video, and I'll explain to you why it's possible that it was taken somewhere along the bottom of this hill, because the smoke looks like it's coming from this area. And it didn't look like it was coming from that far, so it was either coming from this area or just along the bottom of the hill, it looked like. So that it's possible that a UFO crashed right along here, and that was the smoke that we were seeing. Now let me show you the other locations. Alright, so we're going to look at the first location that the gentleman, and I wanted to ask Daniel Garothy, darn it, I'm a little bit disappointed I couldn't interview him. I wanted to ask him if that comment was left by a male or a female. Try to get some sort of information about this alleged reportedly military person. Okay, now it's going to the... So this is where the person in the comment claims that the crash was. And this would be consistent with the reports that there was a crash in the river in the mountains. This is in a river and it's in the mountains. And then the other one that the site we were just looking at, where the ordnance place is, the IMBEL company, that's not in a river. But here we have Suburbo River, and let me just see if I can swing the camera around. I mean, this is really remote, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment, how remote this is, this location. But before we talk about that, supposedly this is the other location where the beings ended up finally being caught. They were caught here. Now that's far away. I measured that. You see, I drew the line. That means that these ETs supposedly went all the way from here. The crash was here, according to this military person that left this comment. The crash was here in the river, in the mountains, and they killed an ET, and then two of them made it this far, and I measured that, by the way, and that is 26.12 kilometers approximately, which is 16.23 miles, so just over 16 miles. If this report is true, supposedly that's how far the ETs made it. And you got to wonder how they could make it that far on foot with the military pursuing them. So unbelievable. And then supposedly there was a report that the ETs had a way of defending themselves as well. So it's all very interesting. My theory is that there was two crashes, just like people reported. This is where the video was taken. In my opinion, this is where the video was taken because, and I'll explain why I think that. I could be wrong, and this is also, but this is not where they shot at the ETs and the ETs fled, and I'll explain that. I'll explain why I believe that. So if you look at this location, the other alleged crash site, that's just too remote for anyone to record video footage, in my opinion, other than the actual military personnel. And we're going to talk about in a few minutes about the military personnel that reportedly were involved in this, and I don't believe that they would have recorded it and that it would have leaked out. That is possible, though. It's possible that this is where the video that we see was recorded, and that it leaked out. The only thing is, I would be pretty sure that would have had to come from a military personnel, because look at this location. This is very remote, and I don't think that a civilian would get there. On the other hand, supposedly there was a skydiver, but they caught the skydiver, and they took the skydiver's camera or whatever, or the SD, the memory stick or whatever, out of the camera. So that makes me think that the likely place where that video was recorded was the other location, not this location here. And if it was this location, it had to be military personnel that recorded that video, if the video is authentic. And I'm going to explain why I think it might be authentic. Visit the Rudolf Steiner Archive YouTube channel to learn about who built the Egyptian pyramids and how they did it, the ancient Atlanteans and their flying airships, why humanity suffers disasters, pandemics, and cataclysms. Learn about these mysteries and more right here on YouTube. A really close analysis of the comment left by this alleged military person, and there is a EMCFA. It's part of the Brazilian military. They also mentioned NATO in their comment. In 2019, after U.S. President Trump met with the new Brazilian president, Jair Bolsonaro, Trump announced a commitment to make Brazil either a member of NATO or a major non-NATO member. And of course, NATO Article 10 prevents non-European countries from joining NATO, but Brazil can still become a MNNA member, which stands for Major Non-NATO Ally. And there is an Air Force base in Santa Cruz. I did confirm that. So far at this point of my analysis of this comment and the information in this comment, that this supposedly this military person left, that I read to you guys a few minutes ago. So far, I find no fault in their comment. It could be real. It looks like that, and I'll continue my analysis. There is an Air Force base in Santa Cruz, so that was true. There is a naval air base in Sao Pedro, del Dia. That was also true. They mentioned Sindacta, Cindacta. Well, that's the air traffic control for that area. So that was also accurate information, and it would make sense. It is possible. It looks very possible that this person was giving us actual real information. There's also a COMDABRA. Comdabra is the Brazilian Air Defense Command. So that was also accurate information. And then DTCEA, PCO, well, that's the Brazilian Presidential Support Aircraft. So that means that the president and stuff in Brazil would have been notified of what was going on, and his I believe it's the aircraft that would escort or protect the presidential aircraft were notified, which makes sense. That would be what would happen. The information, the comment also mentioned General John Raymond of the U.S. Space Force. Well, that's true. We do have a General John Raymond, and he is a general in the U.S. Space Force. And he is an active general. This isn't somebody who's retired or anything like that. That was also accurate information in the comment. There is also Stratcom, space aggressors. They mentioned space aggressors. They didn't mention Stratcom, but they mentioned space aggressors and Captain Barnes. Well, space aggressors and Captain Barnes are part of Stratcom, and they actually do train U.S. Special Forces for extraterrestrial conflicts. Believe it or not, that's a matter of public record. You could look that up, and it's true. So let's see, what else did I see there? Basically, my analysis of the comment is that if there were to be a true comment with information, providing information from somebody in the military about what happened, it would be that comment. That comment, all the information in it looks accurate, and it looks like it's exactly the type of information that would pertain to a UFO encounter being responded to by the military and in Brazil, above the skies of Brazil, and the U.S. military would get involved. So another thing I want to talk about is if I didn't think that there was a likely chance that this was all real, I wouldn't cover it. I wouldn't make videos about it. I wouldn't talk about it. I would look into it more and try to, get some sort of feeling that there's something to it before I would present it to the audience. So if I'm presenting it to the audience, it's because I believe that it's real. And an example would be, there was a video I saw when I was researching the Mage Brazil UFO crash. There was a video I saw of a UFO above one of the pyramids in Egypt, and it looked a lot better than the UFO video footage we see of the Mage Brazil incident. The one in Egypt above the pyramid was in the day. It was daytime. It was a lot more clear. It showed a beam coming down from the craft, and it was really interesting looking. I really wanted to present it to you guys. The only problem was I couldn't get any single corroborating piece of evidence to like indicate that it was real. Not a single eyewitness report. No other videos to back it up, nothing to back it up to make it look real. So I didn't present it to you guys. As cool as it looked and as real as it looked, I had nothing to back it up to make it look real, so I didn't present it to you guys. Now this case in Mage Brazil has not just one, but many witnesses, many Brazilian civilian witnesses who they were in their houses because of COVID-19, because of the virus, and it must have taken something pretty serious for them to go outside and start recording and record this thing. So not only do we have the witness testimonies, the Brazilian civilians, but we have not just one, but more than one video of all of this. And then we had the caller and stuff like that on Was It Das podcast that spoke to Daniel Grothy, and we also had Davies Balthazar, who is the Brazilian investigative journalist who did some pretty good research, and he did some pretty good investigating. And he seemed like he wasn't 100% sure. He didn't say that he was 100% sure, but it sounded to me like he thought that there could be something to this story, and he had a lot of information on it that he provided. So that was good. And then the next thing that we're going to look at is going to be the video of supposedly it's the UFO crashed down onto the ground, and somebody was able to get a video of it. And again, my feeling is that either that was a civilian that took that video near the ordnance property, the IMBEL property we looked at on Google, or it was a military personnel who took the recorded it at the remote location in the river. And I think it's more likely that it was a civilian that took that picture near the ordnance factory, the IMBEL factory. But it's also possible that it was taken at the remote location near the river, and it could have been a civilian. Maybe somehow they got out there. Maybe there's a cabin or a house out there or something that you can't see from Google Earth, or that I didn't notice. So I'm not ruling that stuff out. I'm just kind of giving you the more likely scenario, And right now we're going to look at it, and I'll tell you what I think of the picture. And before we do that, Richard Dolan did talk about this, and he didn't say he thinks it's real or that he thinks it's fake. But his wife did make a comment about the video that we're about to watch, and I'm going to explain to you how I disagree with her. Richard Dolan did talk about a Brazilian ufologist named AJ Javard. He's a UFO researcher in Brazil who stated emphatically, actually he didn't state it, well he put it in a comment. He sent a comment or a message to Richard Dolan that there's nothing at all to this story. So I don't know AJ Javard, so I really don't care what he thinks or what he says. I don't know him. I've never even heard of him. Number one. Number two, we don't know that that comment or that message that Richard Dolan got actually came from AJ Javard. I'd really like to see him on video saying that there was nothing to this story. That could have come from somebody else, or we see all the evidence and indication of a cover-up here. Well, AJ Javard could be part of the cover-up. He could be being paid to say that. We just don't know. Okay, so this is the video that supposedly is the one of the actual crashed UFOs, and Richard Dolan's, I guess that's his wife. I'm not sure who he's been having on his show. Very nice lady. I really like Richard Dolan. I'm a fan of him. I feature his channel. I'm a subscriber of Richard Dolan. And again, Richard Dolan didn't say that he thought this was real or that he thought it was fake. He says he just isn't sure right now. But his wife, or I'm sorry, because I don't know who that is, but his friend, or I'm assuming that's his wife, said that she thinks this video is fake. And I disagree with her because she didn't give any good reasons, in my opinion, to say that this is fake. She said that she thinks that they were trying to make this look like smoke, and that they were trying to fake the video. I disagree. I don't think that this looks like smoke, and I don't think that they were trying to make this look like smoke. What this is, I'll tell you what I think we're looking at here, in my opinion. We're looking at the side of a hill. And first of all, they've got a really bright light that they're shining. It's either connected to their camera or it's just another light that they're shining in this direction towards the UFO. So the light is kind of blinding this area right here in the foreground. And this, in my opinion, is just the side of a steep hill, possibly the bottom of a mountain. And the reason why it looks like that is because it's either grass or dirt, and it just has the bright camera on it, and so it just looks like that. And it's a little bit out of focus because they're focusing on this. I think the focus is on this. They focus the camera on this object. So I don't see any reason personally, and I'm not an expert in photography or videos. I'm just now learning how to do this stuff. But, and you guys know that. You guys who've been my subscribers for a while, I'm just now starting to get good at making videos and doing different things and stuff, software. And, but I don't, from what I can see, I don't see any reason to call this fake. This is the side of a hill or the bottom of a mountain. It's just a little bit obscure because it's out of focus, and they've got a really bright light shining on it. It looks like grass or dirt, and that could be a UFO. It does look like part of it is in the ground, um, and I'm not sure if this was what somebody was talking about. Looked like a dog bowl. There was David Grothy, the host of Das ist was ist das, which means what is that in German. He said that he saw pictures of somebody saying that it was a UFO, and it looked like a dog bowl. So I'm not sure if that's if he's talking about this or not. I couldn't get him to do an interview. I was going to ask him some questions, but it does look like this object could be casting blue light in the background. And I'm trying to see. It's hard for me to analyze it because I've got a bright light in my face, probably about as bright as this light right now shining at me, and that's for my camera. But I do see some sort of something over here. It looks like it could be trees or even a brush or something. It's hard to say, but it does look like this object could be projecting blue light away from us in the other direction, which is probably good, because if it was shining the blue light towards the camera, we probably wouldn't see anything at all. So luckily it's shining the blue light the other way. And I believe that what we're looking at is the top of the craft. If this is a real craft, and I'm not saying that it is, and if this video is real, if it's authentic, which all I'm saying is that right now I don't have any reason to say that it's not real. So I'm going to give the person who created this the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to believe them. Just to keep an open mind that let's just say that this is real. Well, Bob Lazar, he described the UFOs. He said that a blue corona came out of the bottom of the sport model that he saw them test at Area S4. And there is a blue light going that way. So that's the only reason why I say that this could be the top, and maybe the bottom is facing away from us, and it's shining the blue light that way. But it's my opinion that the reason why we can't really see what all this is, whether it's a forest or whether there's a house back there or who knows what it is because of that blue light it's shining. And so it's just interesting, and it's an interesting video. Richard Dolan, his attitude is he needs more than just lights in the sky, and I understand that. Now this is that property we were looking at on Google Earth. I was talking about a gate. This is the gate. They just showed a moment ago the monument thing I was talking about, and that's the smoke I was talking about, and you can hear the explosions. If you guys want to watch this video, watch my last video. I played the audio, and I played this video, and you could hear it. Here's the one that they were saying it was red and then it turned blue. But again, this is just, as Richard Dolan would say, this is just lights in the sky. And he kind of has a point. If you can't see it closely, how can you identify if it's, for example, something that we made doing reverse engineering at S4 or Area 51, or whether it's an actual ET craft. Because we do have our own craft that we've recovered from downcraft, and that maybe we even made our own. And then there's ET craft. So I understand what Richard Dolan is saying, but when you put it all together and you consider the witnesses and what they say, and you consider what the footage shows and what we know from history, I believe that the witnesses are probably pretty close to correct with what they're saying. And Brazil is not new to UFO phenomenon. They have a history of UFO phenomenon. Last video we talked about the Virginia UFO case from I think it was 1996. That's a very famous case in Virginia, Brazil, where ETs where they actually survived a crash, and they were alive, and then the military came and took them, but they were sick, I guess, maybe because of our atmosphere, or maybe they were injured during the crash. But this is just more of the footage that I showed it again. I showed this in my last video as well, and as I was saying before, this is probably going to be my final video because I just don't really have any more input on it. Shepard and Ballas, he's the gentleman that has the website IntelliHub. IntelliHub is a great website. So this is supposedly the craft that we saw that was crashed right here, that somebody took a video of. There's a lot of people that believe this is the one, and Bob Lazar was saying that the way they fly is not the way people think they fly. They fly belly first. So that would mean, if I'm correct, and the blue corona comes off of the belly, that would explain why we're seeing the blue light. But I'm just speculating, though. I don't know. And then Bob Lazar was saying that the blue corona was just when it was lifting off. So, this could be a totally different type of ship. It could have a different propulsion. It could work differently. We just don't know. We need more information. But I do think it's a UFO, though. And as I was saying a moment ago, Shepard and Bellis, he has the website IntelliHub. Well, he and Daniel Grothe were on Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis. So you guys can check out Ground Zero talk show. They talked a lot about this, and they've got other information and interesting stuff as well. And then Shepard and Bellis interviewed Daniel Grothe on his YouTube channel. So you can check out Shepard and Bellis's YouTube channel for more information and to hear the interview with Daniel Grothe. I'm just kind of giving you guys my analysis. But I would say that if you want to continue to find out and learn about this, it looks like Daniel Grothe is going to continue to cover this story and continue to look for new stuff. I'm pretty much done covering this, and I'm going to probably look for some other stuff, some new stuff to cover or go over. I've been doing a lot of research about the COVID-19 and U.S. involvement in the funding and engineering of COVID-19. We've got a lot of evidence of that. So you can check out my videos if anyone's interested. But this is what I wanted to get to. Look at this. Now, I'm not playing the audio to this, but you guys can look this up. What I'll do is I'll try to find it, and I'll leave a link in the description for the original person that uploaded this. But you can hear the police in the background. This is a real video, and that's a real UFO. And if you look at that UFO, I mean, look at that. That's low to the ground. And it's weird. At first, it looked like there were sets of three. the lights were in sets of three. So 3 lights and then a little bit of a space, 3 more lights. And then it looked like either the lights started going out and only certain ones were staying lit and blinking, or the thing was changing shape or something. It was very strange, that UFO. But here's more UFOs. And so yeah, those are the guys that are covering this. They're going to continue to cover this topic. Is Daniel Grothe. Daniel Grothe is, as I was saying earlier, he's the host of the German podcast Was ist das, which is German for what is that. And he's got a YouTube channel. I left links in my last 2 videos for his channel and for his website. I might leave a link in this one as well, because I did read that comment from his website. So I'll leave a link for Daniel Grothe's website, where I read that comment to you guys from the military person talking about the river crash in the mountain, and they actually gave the coordinates and a lot of very interesting information. So that's who you're going to want to tune into if you want to continue to hear about this story, is Daniel Grothe. And again, if anyone's interested in learning about the truths behind U.S. involvement in funding and engineering the COVID-19 bioweapon, check out my videos. They're pretty new. I just made them not long ago, and they've got a lot of really interesting information about U.S. involvement. And it's interesting because Trump's blaming it all on China. And this is starting to get a little lengthy, so I want to get ready to start wrapping it up, and so I can upload it and present my my analysis to you guys. And this comment, which is really interesting, I found it very interesting. And but before I do that, I wanted to go over some of the things that Daniel Grothe and I agreed on, and then we have a difference of opinion in our theories, our overall theories. And so, of course, Daniel and I both agree that something did happen in Mage, Brazil, above the skies in Brazil, that there were UFOs, and that the military went after them, and that it looked like that there was 2 crashes, not just one, and that there was a military retrieval. So he and I both agree on that. Now, I was watching Daniel's interview by Shepard and Bellis. Again, Shepard and Bellis is the one. His website is IntelliHub, and IntelliHub is really cool. It's got a lot of alternative news. And Daniel Grothe was on, being interviewed by Shepard and Bellis. He was kind of giving the theory that there was a deal made between President Eisenhower and ETs, bad ETs, not good ETs, bad ETs, and that Eisenhower made a deal with bad ETs to basically, the way he words it is, he says that Eisenhower sold us out, and that the human race was sold out in this deal. And I strongly disagree with that. There's no evidence that there was ever a deal that was made, and I'll explain that a little bit more as I go forward in a few minutes. But so just to kind of explain a little bit more of Daniel Grothe's theory, and there's a lot of people that think this, that think that there was a deal that was made, and that the deal was they would give us technology in exchange to be able to go to any government facility they want, and basically run the world and abduct humans and all this other nonsense. And it actually, that theory contradicts everything else we know, and I'll explain how it contradicts everything else we know. First of all, President Eisenhower um, warned the world about the military-industrial complex. So he wasn't, a fan or into the idea of a military-industrial complex. He was against the idea, and he warned everyone publicly. He actually warned the world of the dangers of a military-industrial complex. There's also so I'm going to start by talking about President Eisenhower. President Eisenhower was a general in the Army. He was one of the better presidents that we've had in our history. There was an interview that Richard Dolan did, and it's my favorite interview that Richard Dolan ever did. And there was a gentleman that was sick. He was nearing death, and I want to say that his name was Agent Kruper or something like that. He was in the CIA. But the thing is, when you go into intelligence, they give you a new identity. So if you have, for example, if you have a family, your family is still going to know you by your name, but when you go to work, your credentials and stuff like that are going to have this new identity. And the reason why they do that is to protect you, whatever information you may be working on or project you may be working on, and the integrity of that information and that project, and to protect your family. So, and I don't know that they always do that and that every intelligence agency does that, but they will do that in some cases, and if not all the time. And they certainly did it with this gentleman that Richard Dolan interviewed. He was a CIA director for, I believe, the East Coast. But he didn't do overseas stuff. He explained that he did stuff right here in the U.S. He was in the Army before he got into the CIA. And Linda Moulton Howell originally was working with him. He wanted to disclose some information, and he was threatened. So, and I guess their phones were tapped. So he stopped talking to Linda Moulton Howell, and it kind of died out. But as he got a little bit older and some years passed, he began to get sick, and he went to Richard Dolan because I guess in the interview he said he only had maybe a month or so to live, or something like that. I forget the exact amount of time, but he went to Richard Dolan, and what I'll do is I'll leave a link in the description for that video as well. And now some of these links I may not have in the description within the first hour or two that this is released. It might take me an hour or two to add all the descriptions, all the links, I'm sorry. Because I said now that I'm going to add, I think this is the third one that I'm saying that I'm going to add. So give me a little bit of time, but I should have them all in the description. But basically, the gentleman in the interview with Richard Dolan, he explained how Eisenhower, when he was president, told Area 51, the personnel there, that they had to report to Washington. And they told President Eisenhower that he had no jurisdiction over what they were doing at Area 51. And so Eisenhower had a meeting with Hoover and I think it was Nixon and this gentleman, the CIA gentleman, and his boss. So two people from the CIA, and they suggested to Eisenhower that he be firm with them and not accept that from Area 51, and they brought up, hey, you were an Army general and you're going to let them tell you that. So Eisenhower thought about it, and he said, okay, I want you guys to go over there and deliver a personal message to the personnel at Area 51. Tell them that they have a week to report to Washington. And if they don't report to Washington, I'm going to get the 1st Army from Colorado, and we're going to go and we're going to take the base over. We're going to rip that place apart. We don't care what classified material they're working on. We're going to rip this stuff apart. So they went and they told the personnel at Area 51, it was 2 CIA directors. One was an assistant director. And they told the personnel at Area 51, and they got scared. They allowed the 2 CIA gentlemen to come in and look at everything that was going on and see what was going on. And they saw UFOs, and they saw that the military had ETs that they were holding captive. And information has come out that they hold the ETs captive and basically torture them and try to get information out of them, usually that when they're having trouble with reverse engineering. So, of course, the CIA went back and reported that to Eisenhower, and he was greatly troubled by that news, and they all agreed to keep it secret, supposedly. So, it's kind of interesting because they say that after the Roswell, the 2 crashes in Roswell, the military announced that there were crashes, and then they took back, they changed their story within, like, I don't know, 24 hours or something like that. And in the book, The Day After Roswell, it explains how one of the reasons why they did that was because of all the calls that they were getting at the military base, and that they were being bogged down by calls from all over the world, and it actually was jamming up their communication system. So I guess there was a lot of reasons why they started keeping it secret. But Eisenhower seemed to be somebody with integrity and somebody, with a backbone that wasn't going to be pushed around, and somebody that cared for the people. So this idea that he made a deal, what I think might have happened was, I think they might have made a deal, the shadow government, and then they put Eisenhower's name in it. They kind of tarnish his name because he stood up to them. He was standing up to the shadow government. So that's exactly the type of thing they would do. Is they probably made a dirty deal, and then they're saying, oh, it was a deal that Eisenhower made. And supposedly, I've heard the story. Supposedly Eisenhower went to like a dentist appointment or something, and they didn't know where he was, or something like that, and he was off making this deal. But there's like no evidence that Eisenhower made this deal. And all the evidence shows that over the years we have targeted the UFOs and the ETs. There's no evidence that the ETs have been targeting us, or that they're hostile. Not that I've seen, but there's all the evidence suggests the opposite. And when you look at it, all started from my research and from my, I love history. I study a lot of history, and in the 40s, military bases had missiles that were going offline, and there were reports of UFOs in the area when they were going offline, and it was believed that the UFOs were making them go offline. And what I have a theory I presented in another video, and I'll just kind of gloss over it now real quick, and that is, I believe that the ETs are here to help humanity. There are others who believe the same thing. Dr. Stephen Greer believes the same thing, and he talks about how they're not hostile, and this false flag alien invasion that they're working on, and that's the master plan. And I agree with Dr. Stephen Greer. And so basically, when the ETs were making the missiles go offline, they were doing that to prevent World War III. World War III was planned to happen. There's been all these plans for this like global agenda, this dirty agenda to insert even more control over the people than is already in place. And and a lot of them have been averted. You know, if it weren't for interference and for intervention, we wouldn't even have as much freedom as we do now. We'd have even less. People think it's bad now. Well, it could be much worse, in my opinion. And and the plan was for it to be much worse, and it's been prevented by intervention. And I believe that the ETs prevented World War III. That's my theory. And when that happened, not just our military, not just the U.S. military, but there's several countries that are working on this together that have declared war against ETs. And I believe that the Cold War, and I have reason to believe it, and I'll explain it in a moment, the Cold War was a front, was a cover for the war against ET. In fact, in the book The Day After Roswell, which has Colonel Philip Corso, he's an Army colonel, and he talks about how the Strategic Defense Initiative, which is also known as the Star Wars program, was just a cover to target UFOs. The weapons that they were putting on those satellites were to target UFOs. And the whole reason behind the Strategic Defense Initiative had nothing to do with Russia. It had all to do with UFOs and with ET, this war against ETs. And another thing to think about is, let's just pretend for a minute, because I like to be open-minded and consider every angle, right? I'm a truth seeker, and the only thing that really matters in life is truth. So I care about truth, and I look for the truth. So I have to consider that I could be wrong, right? And I'm always looking for other information, and new insights. So let's just say that the ETs were hostile, for example, and that the military was protecting us. Well, why not just say that? Why all the lies and the secrecy? So anytime that you're being lied to, and there's all kinds of secrecy, and there's secrets in and of themselves aren't necessarily bad. And if it depends on the context, but something simple like, I don't believe this idea that if people knew that that we weren't alone in the universe, it would ruin religion. How would it ruin religion? It wouldn't ruin religion. And you could make the argument that it would hurt the credibility of the government and the military, but their credibility already is really being questioned more and more. The more the people wake up, and people are waking up. But if they were such a threat, then why all the lies? Why not just? It would make more sense for them to to explain the situation and explain what they were doing if it was true and they were a threat to us. But that's not the case. They're not hostile to us. If they were hostile to us, and I kind of like John Lear. John Lear, he'll talk about this too, and he says ET made us, and like whenever they talk about a massive depopulation agenda, I laugh because John Lear says, "Oh well, ET didn't make us to let some clown come along and decimate the population by 50%." It's kind of rings true to me, but I kind of going along that line of thought, if they were hostile to us, first of all, people don't even. It's funny because Richard or Dave, I forget Von Braun or whatever his name is, he made the comment that we have technology that could take ET home, right? Which is probably somewhat of an exaggeration, but I bet we do have stuff, that whatever you see in the movies and stuff, we probably have it. I believe that. But you definitely, whatever we have, extraterrestrials have even better technology and stuff like that, and they have even better resources, I believe. So if they were hostile to us, this is my point, we would be in big trouble. And what another thing is the way that the military is targeting them shows that they're not hostile, because we're not seeing these big fights. We're not seeing like an actual invasion. We're seeing all this covert stuff where the craft are being targeted, shot down, and there's a recovery mission, and they take the ETs hostage and torture them, and they do reverse engineering. So that's what the secret's all about. The secret's all about the technology and the reverse engineering and the military industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about. And the reason why they keep it all secret is because if people knew those truths, they would be very disgusted with the military, and a lot of people wouldn't like it. So what they try to do is they try to present the idea that they're hostile to us and that they're protecting us, which is nonsense. Because if they were hostile to us, we'd all be in serious trouble, and there would be no secrets about it. The fact that it's all secret, what's secret is them targeting the ETs and the UFOs. If the ETs and the UFOs were targeting us, there would be no secret. It would be very, very plain and obvious. But they're not hostile. They come around and then they're targeted. And it's the targeting and it's the recovery and stuff like that that is being secretive. Other than that, they're not really secretive. But we had the Project A119 in 1958 was a plan to detonate a nuclear bomb on the moon. Or why would they want to detonate a nuclear bomb on the moon? And then they said that it was for research, for scientific research. Well, that makes no sense at all for that they would do that for scientific research. And then they said they canceled the plan. So on the one hand, they said they canceled the plan, but then on the other hand, they said that they had plans for bases on the moon. They had in 1958 they had Lunex project, which was a plan to construct an underground Air Force base on the moon. And then in 1959, 1 year later, they had Project Horizon. So this was all right around the same time that they had the plan to attack the moon. And they supposedly canceled the Project A119. Well, they weren't going to tell us that they did Project A119. I believe that they did Project A119 and they just never told the public. So what they did was and there's actually footage has leaked out of them launching some sort of advanced weapon at the moon and destroying, it looked like they destroyed like some buildings and stuff, because there supposedly is life on the moon. And so it looked like we were at war with ETs on the moon, and that we were trying to take over the moon. That's the way it looks like if you look at history. And what other information did I have? That might be about it. But to make, basically in conclusion, and this is just my opinion, and I appreciate other opinions and other points of view, like Daniel Grothe and stuff, and people, some people think that the ETs are hostile. It's possible that I'm wrong. I have an open mind, and I care about truth and integrity. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know it all or that I'm always correct. But what I'm doing is I'm looking at history, and I'm looking at all the pieces of the puzzle, and I'm telling you the picture that I see, me personally. And I don't see Eisenhower selling us out, and I don't see UFOs and ETs hostile against humans. That's really just sort of a fairy tale fantasy and theory. What we do see evidence of is we do see evidence that humans are hostile against the aliens. Now they're saying that it's because the aliens are hostile, but that's an excuse. There's no evidence for that. That's just an excuse. Until I see evidence of aliens being hostile against humans, I don't believe it. But I have seen evidence of humans targeting continuously, the military continuously targeting these UFOs and these ET crafts, and we hear story after story after story of what they do when they catch the ETs. They hold them captive and they try to get information out of them, and it's for reverse engineering. And you can look into Dan Burrish. Um, he was I like Dan Burrish a lot because Dan Burrish worked at one of the bases, and I believe it was the same as Bob Lazar. I believe it was S4 Area 51. We have so many of these military bases now underground. You can get them confused, but I believe that's where Dan Burrish worked, and Dan Burrish was the one that was working with a ET called J-Rod to and it was they were to reverse engineer. And then what they do is they get the technology and they keep it in the shadow government and the deep state, and they keep us using vehicles with oil, and they keep us, acting, working like slaves. Well, they have all the good technology and all the money, and they interfere with our politics, and it's all corruption. So if you want to believe them, and then they're the ones that are saying that the ETs are hostile. So if you want to believe them, be my guest. But I don't believe them. And Dan Burrish was explaining how he was involved in this project, and working with one of the ETs in reverse engineering, and I guess he was able to communicate with the ET. I believe it was telepathically, and Dan Burrish was saying how the ET was communicating sadness to him, and that the ET missed his home, and that he had his own family too, and that he missed his family. And I really like the Dan Burrish story, because Dan Burrish supposedly, reportedly, tried to help this ET get away and escape. So it's kind of a funny story. And you think about it, and they execute extreme control in these projects, in these black projects, where it's compartmentalized. We hear the stories. Nobody can talk to anyone. There's a buddy system. You get one partner that you can talk to. You can't talk to anyone else. You work on one little facet of the project, and you don't know anything else. And Bob Lazar was saying how that goes against everything that science stands for, and that's why it's so hard for them. They do everything so stupid, and then they wonder why they're having trouble reverse engineering when no one's allowed to talk to anyone or exchange ideas or anything like science is supposed to work. And they keep it all secret, and they're doing all these bad things, and then they wonder why they're not getting anywhere with the reverse engineering. So then they start torturing ETs and trying to get information out of ETs. So it was cool, because you hear that Dan Burrish tried to help the ET to escape, and he got caught, helping the ET escape. I forget if the ET actually was able to escape, but it might have been able. It came pretty close. I mean, he got him like outside and stuff, and it was a really cool story. But you kind of, when you think about it, anyone with a heart, even a half a heart, any real human being that was in that situation, seeing this another being, you know, it doesn't matter if it's a human being, another being tortured, you know, for these nefarious purposes. I think anyone that even had a half a heart would help another being. And then Dr. Rudolf Steiner also talks about other beings and stuff like that, and how we're not alone, and that, you know, a lot of these things really can only be understood from a spiritual perspective. You know, just look at the crimes that the military has committed against humans, the human being, and the war crimes that were exposed by Julian Assange. He says he has records and papers of war crimes that I think he said something like they would go all the way, if you line them up, they would go all the way from Europe, you know, like England, all the way to, or the UK, all the way to Russia. Like literally that many records of war crimes. And we've seen footage of some of the war crimes. And, you know, the military, if anything should be questioned and stuff, it would be what some of the things that the military has done. Oh yeah, it just came to my mind. Dr. Rudolf Steiner. So I'm into the spiritual science. I normally don't like to talk about spiritual science too much because it's extremely deep, very deep, esoteric knowledge and information, and it's when you first look at it, it's like whoa. But the more you learn it, the easier it is to understand. And but I'm still very much a student of it, so I'm more supposed to be just watching and observing and kind of learning than doing so much, you know, talking. But I do like to mention a few things once in a while that I've learned, and I think it's good to do that. And one of them is Dr. Steiner talks about other beings on other planets, but they're different than the human being. And they don't have, you know, their sexes like we have sexes. They don't have male and female. They're different. They're so different than humans that a person wouldn't even understand, you know, unless you had the training and the knowledge and stuff, and the understanding, and sort of the foundation to understand, and the open mind, and you were able to, you know, learn all that. But most people wouldn't even be able to understand this stuff. But they're very, very different than the human being. Their environments are completely different than the human being. They don't think like the human being. They don't see or even smell. Their senses, a lot of these other beings out there, are different than the human being. They're just so different that you know, in a sense, it kind of makes them alien to us. But they're closely related to the human being, very, very closely related. And so it's interesting because Dr. Steiner talks about how they don't have like male and female like the human being does. They're all one sex. And in the future, if you go far into the future of the human being, there's going to come a time in the future when the human being is no longer male or female, but we're all one sex. And that's because at that point in time, we're going to have other ways to create. We're going to be more powerful because of our spiritual development as a humanity, as a species, and we're not going to need to create using that, you know, that in that way like we do now. And it's interesting because Dan Burrish, I was talking about Dan Burrish. Well, Dan Burrish, and a lot of people talk about these ETs not being male or female, and they say, oh, well, you know, because it's not male or female, it's the devil. And I hear everything you could possibly hear that's negative and bad just because they're not male or female. They were created. They were created in the lab, and I mean, I don't even know all the nonsense because I don't even listen to the nonsense because I have esoteric knowledge. But just because something isn't male or female doesn't make it evil, and it doesn't make it bad. In fact, the ET that I was talking about with Dan Burrish, Dan Burrish was talking about how this ET that wasn't a male nor a female, I believe they call it asexual, or you're neither male nor female. And that's because they have other, like I said, they have other ways of creating. They don't have to create the way we create. And we create, and it's kind of connected to our lower nature. Eventually we're gonna evolve and develop into a higher nature with greater abilities and greater creative abilities. And even if you go back in time and study, like Rudolf Steiner teaches about the ancient Egyptians and the pyramids, well, it's no mystery to us who built the pyramids. Human beings built the pyramids. The consciousness of the human being was much different back then. And the way that we built back then was much different than the way we build now. And I don't want to get off track too much, but and I kind of forget some of the teachings a little bit. I have to do a refresher on it. But I believe it was through you know, they talk about like the word and speaking and creating through speech. And I think that gets into the vibration and stuff like that. But I know that the Egyptians, during the ancient Egyptian times, humans had a connection, more spiritual connection to higher beings and to the cosmos. And everything that we built was spirit, you know, had kind of a spiritual meaning behind it, or I don't know, for lack of a better term, blueprint behind it. And it was all had a cosmological significance to it. But it's just interesting because the story about Dan Burrish and the ET that he was working with the reverse engineering, the one that he tried to help escape, was supposedly, if I remember the story correctly, I have a pretty good memory, supposedly this being claimed to be a human from the future. So, you know, imagine the idea that we're targeting our own people, our humans, us, from the future, and how terrible that could be. And that's just something that I want to leave people thinking about in closing. And thank you for joining me.